Okay, we're recording. I want to share with you some of the experiences my wife and I had when we were in Kenya. Did a lot of fun things. It was really a moving experience, and I hope I can convey that to you tonight. First of all, a shout out to my wife. This is way beyond her comfort zone. And she married me knowing I was crazy, but I never thought she'd follow me to Africa. Well, she did. And I'm just honored to have that. Thank you. So this picture here, I took this picture. Whenever I think of Africa, I think of these, they're called acacia trees. And they're all shaped like that because the giraffes eat the lower foliage, and so the only thing that survives is on the top. So we were driving along, and I thought, this is Africa, because whenever I see Africa, I think of that picture. But the purpose of this trip was twofold, and it's so bizarre how this came together. I have to tell you this story. I retired 4 years ago, and I was bored, so I started doing some web development for nonprofit organizations for free, just volunteer work. And I was doing a website. Why does it keep doing that? I was doing a website for the League of Women Voters for Adams County. And I met this lady, and this lady she's a little eccentric, but she was involved with this group called the Seeds of South Sudan. South Sudan broke away from Sudan about 20 years ago, and they had a huge insurgency and guerrilla act fight in 2014, et cetera. But it's really South Sudan is really in tough shape. And this organization sponsors orphans from South Sudan in an orphanage in Kenya. And so I got involved with that group. They made me the treasurer. I always become treasurers of groups. I don't know why that is. So anyways, the group was planning to come visit last year, but because of COVID, we didn't do it. But then we all got together and decided we were going to do it this year in September. So in the meantime, I was involved during the pandemic in a Bible study group up here in North Denver. I was online, and I met a fellow there, and he leads a group called Leave, Follow, Shine. And it's not a cult, it's a methodology of teaching the gospel. It doesn't say what the gospel is, it just says very biblical based, but this is how you teach it: leave, follow, shine. And you can see how it follows the verses of the Bible. You got to leave your life, you got to follow Jesus, and you need to shine on the mountain, and all leading up to Matthew 28, the Great Commissioning. So his group has missions all over the world, and lo and behold, he has several in Kenya. So I thought, well, I'm going to be in Kenya. Why don't I go visit some Leave, Follow, Shine missions? So the thing sort of snowballed, and I got to thinking about it when we were flying. We had a 14-hour flight. I was flying out there, and I'm thinking, I couldn't have done this. This is not a coincidence that everything came together like this for me and for my wife to do this. So that's the basis of this. We're basically going out there to see our orphanage of the Seeds of South Sudan, and to visit some missions in Kenya for Leave, Follow, Shine. So we left out of Denver, had to change planes in Dallas, Fort Worth. I was terrified we weren't going to make our connection. We did. So we got on. I didn't want to fly through Europe, given all that was going on in Ukraine. Who knows where that was going? So we went through the Middle East. We went to Qatar, Doha, Qatar. And you can see Sharon here. She is settling into her business class seat. Said she liked it. And we brought our nephew with us because he's 18 years old, stronger than I am. And because we brought a lot of luggage. We personally brought 6 laptops to give to the students, and a bunch of clothes and books and you name it, t-shirts. We brought it. So Johnny was our nephew Johnny was our official luggage bearer on the trip, and he did great. We couldn't have done it without him. But we made it to Doha, and our flight to Kenya got bumped. We didn't have enough connection time. So we had to spend 5 hours in the business class lounge in Doha, and it was by far the fanciest business lounge I've ever seen in my life. Fountains, and free food. Sharon and I both had a shower. I mean, it was just really refreshing. So Qatar, I recommend Qatar Airlines. They did great. But our next stop was Nairobi, Kenya. Kenya is in the very middle of Africa. It's right on the equator, but they're at about 8,000 feet. So the climate is very moderate, 75, 80 degrees during the day, 60s, 70s at night. So we weren't bothered by the heat or the humidity or anything like that. Plus, it happened to be the monsoon season, so every afternoon there'd be a rain shower. So made it kind of pleasant. Well, we landed in Nairobi at 6 in the morning, and we went to a hotel. We stayed at the Hilton Hotel down by the airport. Little did we know this would be the nicest airport we stayed in, or nicest hotel we stayed in Kenya. Very Western. Everything about it, the food, the whole thing. The only bad part was when Sharon got stuck in the elevator.
I got stuck in the elevator and I couldn't raise anybody. So I was pounding on the elevator's walls with my cane. And finally this maid heard me and came over and put her key in there so it would work again.
So other than that terrifying experience, the hotel was wonderful. And little did we know, compared to the other hotels we were going to stay at on our visit there. So our first Sunday there, we went to Pastor Jeffrey's church, which is in the northwest slums of Nairobi. The church is the upper floor of that building there. This is Pastor Jeffrey and his daughter, Mercy. She was wonderful. She kind of clung on to Sharon and helped her with stairs and bathrooms and everything else.
And I needed it.
And she needed it. So I spoke to the congregation in Nairobi, Jeffrey's church, and the message I gave was much like the one that we had here recently out of the Good Samaritan. Who is your neighbor? We have so much that separates us, so much that divides us, but we have one thing that joins us, and that one thing is enough. And you are my neighbor, and so we were able to help this church financially with a sound system, and it was really an experience. They love to dance in Africa. Every church service we went to, there was dancing and screaming and beating of drums. And I couldn't help but think to myself what my Southern Baptist brothers would think about this. How these are devil worshipers, but I don't feel that way. So that it's enlightening just to see that this is their way of worshiping God. And they were talking in Swahili, but I'm assuming that they were saying religious thing like God is great always or something like that. But
well, Jeffrey translated for you.
Well, when I got him I spoke English. Everybody speaks English, but my accent was too hard for them and their accent was too hard for me. So Jeffrey translated for me when I got up and actually spoke. So I don't know what he said. Maybe the fat boy says this, the fat boy says that. I don't know. I'm not paranoid though. But as a gift for visiting their church, they gave us a traditional African, they call it a scarf, but it's the size of a blanket. And they use it for everything. They wrap it around their head. They use it as a skirt, wrap it around.
They use it to keep warm when they're out watching the goats.
Yep. And cattle and goats everywhere. But that was a nice gesture for them to give us this. Then Jeffrey took us to his home. He built this home himself. You can see it's totally built out of corrugated iron or aluminum, probably. I don't know what, metal, corrugated metal. But no electricity, no plumbing, no water. He had a 12-volt lighting system in there, but he was proud to show us this is where he lived, and he had built it himself. This is a picture of Pastor Jeffrey and his wife, Sharon, and I outside of their home. He has goats, chickens, Lord knows what he has on, but that's what they live on, is that, that food. So we wanted to get an authentic Kenyan dish. Nobody could tell us what was an authentic Kenyan restaurant. Anybody, it's so eclectic. The different tribes, they all have their own cuisine. And so they suggested this place called the Carnivore. Sounds interesting, right? And they put on a good show, but it's just like Texas de Brazil, if you've ever eaten there. They bring the meat out on a sword and they carve off of the sword. But they had traditional African dancers here. It was a fascinating experience, but that was the best we could do in terms of a Kenyan cuisine. So, and it was pretty good. Sharon had a drink, and the guy actually brought a table out around his neck, and he mixed the drink right there in front of us on the little table around his neck.
That was bizarre.
It was bizarre. And then on Monday, we met with two other ministers in Nairobi. This is Pastor Jack and his assistant, Brune. They have a church in the eastern slum of Nairobi. They came down to our hotel. We had lunch with them and talked to them. And he is just getting started. So again, we helped him with a sound system at their church to get a sound system to get kicked off. They're having problems getting licensing to have a church. You got to be licensed as a church there, and they're having trouble with that. But this guy was really sharp, Jack. He translated all of the Leave, Follow, Shine stuff, materials. There's a booklet in there, materials. He translated it all into Swahili so that the people there could understand it. But he's very biblical based and just really a bright guy.
Plus, he's a preacher's boy.
A what?
He's his pastor's son.
Oh, he is? I didn't know that.
Aren't you listening?
Well, I try. So we moved from the Hilton to a place called African Heart Lodge, which is sort of a hotel for missionaries in Africa. It's in northeastern suburb of Nairobi, probably 15, 20 miles from the Hilton. The day we moved happened to be Inauguration Day. So it's a vacation, and there was military everywhere because 4 years ago they had a lot of violence on Inauguration Day. But we didn't see any violence. Saw a lot of people out in the streets, but nothing scary at all. So we went up to African Heart. We met with our group from Denver. These are our Denver people, and the first night we were there, we coordinated what we were going to talk to. The next day, we were scheduled to talk to our university students that we sponsor. We have about a dozen university students in Nairobi at various schools that we support. So this is where we mapped out what we were going to say. We were going to do some presentations. And then the next day, Ed and I, this is Ed, he's a retired, he has a doctorate in atmospheric science. I don't even know what that is, but.
And about everything else.
About everything else. I mean, but just a brilliant guy, but what can I say? Ed is Ed, But Ed and I taught a class to the university students on how to improve your interview skills, because the people here are from what's known as the Dinka tribe, and of course the Dinka tribe has their customs like we have ours. Their customs are very different than ours, and these kids just do not interview well in a Western university. So we were trying to pump them up. This is, you got to speak up, got to lean in, ask questions, all the kinds of things you need to do in an interview to make a good first impression. So Ed and I team taught on that. One of the interesting things was, this is the three of the girls that are at the university. The girls and the boys don't mix. You know what I mean? The boys go off to themselves, the girls go off to themselves. I mean, they tolerate each other, but they don't mix. And you never see public displays of affection. That's one of the things that struck me. And of course, in our Western society, we mix with girls, and there's lots of public displays of affection. I mean, that's quite normal. It's not normal there. You see, here's three of the guys out there by themselves, just being guys, on a break. But overall, it was a really good class. Here's a picture of all of us, meaning from Denver, plus all of the university students that were able to attend our seminar and our luncheon at the African Heart Hotel there. And then I got a great thrill. I was able to give my first laptop. Like I said, I brought 6 laptops to be given away to these students. And look at the look on that kid's face. This is his first laptop ever, and it's his. I mean, it's just, look at the joy. I mean, doesn't that fill your heart? And this will help him in his studies. He wanted to be an engineer of some kind. So this laptop will help him a great deal. But that was a real joy to me to give this laptop to the student. So from Nairobi, we drove by car to Nakuru, which is about 120 miles. It's about a 3-hour ride. The traffic there is unbelievable. there's as many, they call them motorcycles. I call them trail bikes, 120cc motorcycles. We wouldn't call that a motorcycle here, would we? I don't know.
It'd be a trail bike.
It'd be a trail bike, but there's as many trail bikes as there are cars. And so there are trail bikes everywhere, and all of them the trail bikes rent themselves out as taxis. So you can get from point A to point B on the back of a motorcycle, for mere money. And it's cheap, they can afford it. But
well, yeah, but all they do to get a fare is they hang out on the side of the road.
yeah, so everywhere you look, there's motorcyclists sitting like laying down on their motorcycles, waiting for a ride, or a fare to go somewhere. And then you got all these broken down diesel trucks that could barely pull a hill. And of course, we were in a regular van going up to Nakuru. And so they, like in NASCAR, they draft the trucks in front of them until there's an opening to pull around. I couldn't watch. And they drive on the left-hand side, which
He wasn't driving.
I didn't drive at all. There'd be casualties if I was driving. And the way no traffic lights, we never saw a traffic light. Everything is traffic circles. And of course, they all go clockwise as opposed to ours. And to control the speed, they use speed bumps. The more frequent speed bumps means go slower, because you got to slow down to go up and over the speed bumps. And then everywhere along the road, they have vendors selling vegetables or shoes or whatever. You name it, they're selling it along the road. And so the vendors themselves will put speed bumps out there. So slow down and buy onions from them. It was an experience.
They're working.
They're working. They're hard working.
On their butt. They're actually out working, trying to make a living.
Our students in the orphanage attend a boarding school. It's called Roots Academy. It's not a Kenyan state school. It's a Kenyan private school, but most of 90% of the population is Kenyan, not Sudanese. And it's funny because the Dinka people are very, very tall. So you could look at a group of students of the same grade, and you could tell that's a Dinka, that's a Dinka, and that's a Dinka. It was amazing. And we went up there, and of course we were quite a novelty, as you can see. This is actually a staged classroom because we were there on end of term day. They moved, what do you call it, continuance ceremony. And we did a staged classroom. They weren't really learning there. They rounded up a bunch of kids and threw them in a classroom. Looked like you're learning, so. But as you can see, it's a nice classroom for these kids. They all wear uniforms. This is our sponsored child. His name's Yat Loire. This is our first time we'd ever met him. We talked to him once on a Zoom call last Christmas, but we finally got to meet him at the Roots Academy there.
And he was terrified of us.
Oh yeah, wouldn't you be? I mean, he's 13 years old, and we're his future. If if we give up on him, what's he going to do? He'll go back to Nakuru. What do they call the camp?
Refugee camps. I don't know what
the refugee camp in South Sudan, which has no future. It's just barely survival mode. But they had a big assembly. You can see what was amazing to me at the assembly was the director of the school got up and said, quiet. Now, if you did that in an American school, maybe in 10, 15 minutes, right, you'd have reasonable quiet. It went dead silent when he said quiet. So discipline's important. And I said, well, how do you maintain discipline? And they don't use corporal punishment. And they use timeouts and restricted rights and things like that to regulate their kids. But I was just amazed at how disciplined they were. And look they're sitting out in the sun. It's 75 degrees, We were in the shade. We were up at the front table. We were in the shade. But this guy here, he is actually a lost boy. He back in '84, they gave him a Kalashnikov rifle and taught him to kill. And he served the rebels, and he ran away. And he ended up back here in Denver, started this group called Seeds of South Sudan. So he's the president of it. But he is, in fact, a Dinka from South Sudan and runs the orphanage for us up there.
The one thing is Kenya will not let these kids go get jobs because they don't want the job taken away from the Kenyan.
So the Kenyans cannot work when they're the South Sudanese cannot work in Kenya.
There's no future for them unless somebody takes them out of it.
Right. So they cannot work in Kenya, but they go to school there. The Kenyans tolerate them because a lot of money from the West flows in to put these kids through school, so it props up the whole Kenyan economy, but they don't trust them. They're terrified of them, in fact. Not unlike the situation in Israel with the Jews and the Palestinians. There's not a lot of love there.
When we were there, one of the graduates of the college kids got accepted to be an employee of a bank in Sudan.
Yeah.
And they were all thrilled.
Because
somebody made it.
The whole purpose of our mission at the orphanage is to teach these South Sudanese kids so that they can become future leaders in South Sudan. Because if it keeps going like it's going nowhere in South Sudan. But what they need is a core of bright kids to take over the leadership down the road. And that's what we try to do, is give them the education they need. And only the bright ones come to our orphanage. We don't get underperforming students at the orphanage. They're all good students, because Kenya has an education system that they test twice, at the end of 8th grade and at the end of 12th grade. And the results of your tests determine where you go next, whether you go on to a good high school or a VOTEC, or whether you go on to college, a nice college, or a lower rate college, whatever. It depends on your score on the standardized test. So they teach to the test, which we could argue in our country, we're past that teaching to the test. We try to teach students to learn, I hope. And of course, they had singing and dancing as part of their continuance ceremony with drums, and it was really pretty good. I was impressed. And then this is all of us from Denver, plus Aruk, which is our president. In the back here is the director of Roots Academy. He's actually he's from India, but he went to school in England, Cambridge. Nice guy. I got to talk to him about their computer system. So
his wife works there too.
Yep.
Like the school secretary.
This is an example of one of their dorm rooms. Not quite as nice as CU we'd see, but about the same lines. Four bunk beds in there. And this is their computer lab. Again, not bad.
But which will be much better now.
Yeah.
You should show that picture to Jen and Kenna.
Yeah, really.
Their first dorm when they went to.
They were in the president's dorm, weren't they?
They were on President's Row, and they had a corner room, and 2 of those dorm rooms could have fit in their dorm room.
Our granddaughter's out at Colorado Christian, and they've got 4 bunk beds in a bedroom, but they also have like a sitting room, a living room, and kitchen area that they all share. But it was a little cleaner, but it wasn't much better, equipment wise, than what we saw in Kenya. This is a picture out in front of Roost Academy. These are all our Dinka kids. You can see.
Anybody who's head at all, that's a Dinka.
Oh, we don't have any non-Dinkas in there, but
there were, they must have.
So in Nakuru, we stayed at what's known as the Rift Valley Sports Club. The Rift Valley is, Africa is actually splitting apart geologically, like 6 inches a year or something. And so it obviously creates something of rift in the middle where it splits apart. And so this is right on the rift, or very near to the rift. But this is an old English cricket club. So I'm looking from the cricket field back at the hotel. And it was an okay facility, but not up to Western standards.
The strange thing that struck me was there would be something on the menu to eat, and you'd order it, and they'd come back and say, "We don't have that today. We didn't get our supplies in." There seems to be some logistics problem. And
it would take 30 to 45 minutes to get served in the restaurant, which by our standards was uncomfortable. But we had the same thing in Europe. When we were in Europe, meals are an experience, not a timed event. So the next day we went where we spent our first day at this is our shot of the orphanage. The first day was what we called game day. We played games with the students, talked to them, just sort of hung out in that courtyard there. You can see the courtyard over here. Here the students are gathered playing games. Our nephew really got into it. As we expected, he was quite a hot item amongst being we're OPs, old people, you know, but Johnny was closer to their age, so they really kind of related to him.
And so did the girls.
So the girls, as
The
Rich.
strange thing about them is they would come up to me and say, you know, Johnny is a really nice boy. And I kept wondering, why are they telling me? I already know.
Well, their cultural tradition is the courting is done through the parents. And so we think they were trying to get to Johnny through us or whatever, but.
And the girls do the courting, not the guys.
No, they go to the parents and say, like they told
But
me.
the girls do, not the boys.
I don't, you know, I didn't get that into it. We weren't interested in that at all. You know? Yeah, I mean, we brought a boy and they thought he was pretty nice. I don't know whether it's because he's an American or just close to their age or what, but
He was really good.
he did
with
great.
the little ones.
Yeah.
The ones that were like 8 and younger. He was really good with them. He played cards with them. He did games.
Chess, the great chess players. Better than I am, which is embarrassing. So the next day we came back and we did a health assessment. Each and every child got a health card filled out. We found many of them had eyesight problems, which would really affect their learning ability in school. And nobody had ever bothered to measure their eyes. And we did blood pressure, blood sugar, height. Sharon and I and Johnny did height, weight. I can do that, you know, except these guys, some of them are 7 foot, you know, and you got to try to get their height, you know, was really a challenge. Sharon gave up.
I gave up. I was too short for everything.
Some of them were just, we had to guess, you know, look up and guess at a 7-footer. And I'd ask the really tall ones, do you play basketball? Well, yeah, you know, but that's not a big sport there, basketball. But, you know, at 7 foot here, if you didn't play basketball, there's something wrong, you know. But soccer's their big game. So we were going to buy them a basketball hoop and a basketball.
Here, see me? See how short I am compared to the
Yeah, so look at her. And this is a younger one. Johnny's taller than this one. But it was a struggle. But we got pictures, we got cards to hopefully identify any health problems of these kids. And some of them did have noticeable health problems, which we were able to help, like glasses, give them glasses, you know.
One little guy had a tapeworm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Because one of the people that came with us was a retired nurse.
Yeah.
She was doing most of the serious health monitoring.
Here you can see we're doing eye testing, blood pressure testing. I don't think they're all thin. You know, we'd call it almost morbidly thin, you know. So I don't think we had any blood pressure, hypertensive, I guess would be the right term. So here's a view. We're doing some, that Mary Lou was a retired music teacher, so she was teaching them music. This is a view from inside the courtyard out to the neighbor's house. You can see they have about an 18-foot concrete block wall all the way around the compound. And then on the top of that, they have embedded glass in the top of the concrete and then electric wire on top of that. So you can see security is a concern there. There's so many people that have nothing. You know, when you have nothing, it doesn't matter. You know, you have to steal to live. Then the next day we broke out girls and boys. And the girls got a lecture on, what would you call it? Female hygiene, female development.
Hygiene and development.
Feminine hygiene and development. I did not volunteer for that one. I know nothing about that.
I didn't volunteer for that one either because those girls already know.
They know. So Sharon and I got drafted, not volunteered, drafted to teach the boys how to respect women. It was a good class, but not a topic I'm really.
I think they were a little scared to come forward and say what they really thought.
But at a previous group came out and visited, and they had anonymous input, and that one of the things that was mentioned was sexual harassment by the boys. So we gave a talk on what constituted sexual harassment and, you know, how to deal with it. And we also put in place an adult, a designated adult that they could go talk to if they felt male or female were being harassed. And dating amongst the orphans is not allowed, but you know, boys will be boys and girls will be boys and girls. So it is a problem there, but hopefully we had a little bit of luck in going over that. And this, I love this shot. This is our sponsored child, Yacht Awar. Like I said, he was just terrified. And I understand that because, you know, we've supported him for 2 years now. He's in the 6th grade. I mean, he would like to go to college, you know, he'd like to get through, and it kind of depends if we get mad at him and leave him alone, you know, he's going to be in a tough shape. But the communication wasn't going very well. So I brought my cell phone out and showed him pictures of us here in Denver, like our snow. He'd never seen snow before. And of course, I had pictures of snow and, you know, knee high. We were out there with a snowblower trying to move it. And he was really impressed with that. I think that must be the one I'm showing him right there. But he came to the camp, or came to the orphanage, very malnourished. And he's bounced back from that. He had malaria when he came. He bounced back from that. And he's very thin, but well on his way to a healthy life. And wants to be a doctor, he says.
They all seem to want to be a doctor or a doctor.
Some of them wanted to be pilots, bush pilots, you know. I don't know. But you can see over here on the right-hand side, Johnny's playing chess with one of the other students. He was playing cards with younger students, and I wanted to take a picture, but I missed the shot and say, Johnny's gambling away their lunch money, you know. But missed the shot. Oh, well. And then I got sick. I got dysentery. So I was down for a whole day.
I thought he was going to die.
She thought I was going to die, and she's going to have to ship me back to Denver, you know. It was horrible. But our doctor here in Denver, very wise man, he said, you know, I don't think you should go. You're too old. But if you're going to go, I want you to take these pills because this is very common and you might get dysentery. And so it's an antibiotic is what it was. And so he gave us
duty stuff.
Yeah, he said, now try 4 times with Imodium, you know, 2 hours in between with the Imodium. If that doesn't touch it, take 2 of these. And 4 hours later, I was better. Another 8 to get my GI tract back on, but it was a blessing. So I missed a whole day, and Sharon stayed with me because I don't know why.
I thought you were going to die.
You thought I was going to die. I wanted to call it. Okay, it's 8:28, whatever. But then we had all the younger students come to Rift Valley Lodge, and we had a catered lunch, and Ed presented a piece on the geology of South Sudan, which I think went over well. I was still a little weak, so I didn't sit around for the presentation, but I had lunch there. Probably the first meal I'd really had. Let's see. So here we are with our president, Awat, and his wife and one of his younger children. He has like 5 children. Look at how much taller that guy is than me, and he's average height for a Dinka. And I'm 5'8", so what is that? That's sort of a little on the short side for an American male. But Mary taught music. They love music. They love rhythm. They're very rhythm oriented. So all their church services, they had a tambourine or a drum or something they beat on. Here's a picture of our president, Awat, with his wife and children. You can see.
He's been busy.
I can't tell how many, if there are any girls in there or not. The turquoise looks like a girl, doesn't it? I'll have to ask him next time I talk to him. But then we had a movie night. This is our group. We ate at home base. They prepared a meal for us, which is beans and rice. I didn't eat it.
You were still woozy.
Wasn't it beans and rice and flatbread?
Mm-hmm. That's good flatbread too.
Yeah. They have a whole kitchen staff, and that's all they do all day long is cook. And so when the kids normally aren't there, they're at the boarding school or at the university or whatever, but then they come back for break, and then they all get together, and they all really love each other. It's like family to them, their fellow orphans there. So from Nakuru, we traveled. It's a 6-hour ride to Kitale, due west, almost to we're actually on Lake Victoria, which is the headwaters of the Nile. So that was the next. We hired a driver that was trusted to us, because you got to be careful. Sometimes these drivers take you out, take everything, and leave you in the middle of nowhere. You know,
or worse.
Or worse. We did not have a problem. It was a nice ride, except we'll get to it. You can see everywhere you go along there, there's the little vendors on the street selling everything you can think of. And there's cattle, sheep, goats, burros, all along the right of way. So they don't ever have to mow the right of ways. The animals just eat them down. Sharon says that our driver told her they take them out there to sell their cattle.
That's what he said. He said if the animal's out there in the median, the farmer has put it up for sale.
And sometimes they would stake them out so they wouldn't get into the road, but only twice in the whole trip did we ever see animals try to cross the road. And one time a baby baboon tried to cross the road, and the mother scooped it up and brought it back to the side of the road. Baboons everywhere. You know, they're like little dogs. And they're mean. Don't mess with the baboons. And this was the highlight of the trip for Sharon.
No,
We had to stop.
I told you I didn't want to talk about it.
And this, actually, this is a nice one. This isn't the one we stopped at. The one we stopped at was much, much worse.
There was no water to it. It was just literally a hole.
A sink.
It's a hole.
But this is normal for public toilets in Kenya. It's a hole in the ground. Notice there's not even any bars to hang on to. Notice in the prisons, which we'll talk about later, they don't even have toilet paper because that's considered extra. Toilet paper and soap. So they have a little brush beside the toilet to clean yourself. Not unlike Rome. You know, the Roman was that way. But this was the highlight for Sharon, and she walked out of the bathroom and said, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to forget about it. True story.
I was a little upset.
Yeah, but outside of her comfort zone, but she, a real trooper, I'll tell you. This was our hotel in Kitale. It's one of the nicest hotels in Kitale, and it was almost up to Western standards. The only problem we had is it was cold in our room and we couldn't figure it out. And like the third night we're there, I look up above the bathroom toilet. There's a window that was open in the bathroom. No wonder it was cold in there. So we closed the window and then it was fine. But this is the gate. All the Western hotels have beefed up security. You remember about 5-6 years ago in Mumbai, India, they had an attack on a Western hotel, you know, on the terrace. Sabat, I think is the name of the group. Anyway, so all these hotels have spikes. So you can't get a car in there unless they put the spikes down or in huge gates, iron gates. You can't crash through. And
I thought it was a rather pretty gate.
yeah.
The hotel was like an Arabic theme.
Yeah, it was a nice hotel for Kenya. So the first night we were in Kitale, we met with Pastor David and planned out what we were going to do in Kitale to support his mission there. We spent 4 days there.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sharon stayed at the hotel, and Johnny and I went to visit a medium security men's prison and speak to the Christian ministry there. This is the superintendent. This is Pastor David, and then this is the chaplain for the camp. And here you can see we had no contact with the inmates, but you can see they're dressed in their gray sort of pajama things. And we brought with us soap and toilet paper. And I don't know what else. Anyway, soap and toilet paper, because that's not provided to them.
That is a tuk-tuk.
This is a tuk-tuk, a three-wheeled like motor. It's a motorcycle with 2 people can sit in the back. And they
2 thin people.
Yeah, we never rode. We didn't ride any. We didn't ride in any of those. But you can see. Look at all the trail bikes. Everybody just waiting to get a hire. This is downtown Kitale, busy town. Then Sharon, we picked up Sharon, and we went to another mission. This was in one of the slums outside of Kitale. We went to a church service there, but you can see the quality of the housing. I mean, it's really poor. To this one, we brought food. We brought cornmeal, oil, and lollipops for the kids and little toys for the kids. And it was kind of scary because it turned into kind of a food riot. But
they also have poor health coverage.
For what?
Remember? We were sitting there and they told you that there's a lady laying over in the shack that was dying.
Yeah. She's
from
got
some sort of sepsis.
she got septic, but she's getting better. They put her in the hospital. got an
Well,
update.
yeah, but they put her in that thing all by herself, said you either live or you die, and
Oh, my goodness.
that's where we
Wouldn't that be
left them.
awful?
I know they don't have any money. They can't
They can't go to the doctor, they have no money.
send their kids to school because they can't afford uniforms. In order to go to the Kenyon State School, you got to have a uniform and wear it to the class, and they can't do that. So again, we were able to help out this mission. But it turned into kind of a food riot at the end. You can see I'm being mobbed by the kids. I'm giving out lollipops. And one older guy tried to grab the whole bag of lollipops and take them for himself. And I had to call the pastor over, to mitigate for it. But it reminded me of the church in Corinth, how they had food riots there too. But here I am handing out lollipops, and they love it. Then the next day, Johnny and I went to a women's prison. And the women have their children with them in the mission, or in the prison, until they get to be school age, and then they go to a relative or something. But not unlike our culture, when you go to prison in Kenya, your family pretty much disowns you. It's an honor shame society, and so their family doesn't visit them. So they were very happy for us to visit. Again, we brought toilet paper and soap and women's underwear, because they don't give out underwear to the women in the prison. So I got up and gave the same speech about, well, first of all, we gave toys to the little kids that were in the prison. And I read to them out of Matthew 9:14 that Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." I said that, and then David translated that into Swahili, so hopefully the kids heard and understood what I was saying. But it was pretty moving to see these little kids in prison with their mom, But here, Johnny came with me. Sharon didn't come on this part of the journey either. Johnny helped, and we handed out. They were just so happy that somebody cared. Somebody showed an interest in them and their lives, because like our prisons, most of them are innocent, right? Ask anybody up at the Adams County Detention Center, they're innocent. And if they are guilty, they had their rights all stomped on, right? I mean, that's been my experience. They're the same way. It was interesting that parallel held in Kenya as well as it does here. But Johnny and I, like I said, gave stuff to the women, and the orange sweaters are trustees. They have a less restrictive environment. They can move around the campus a little more. Then we went to David's home. David had invited us to dinner at his home after that. Tragically, 2 weeks ago, David's wife died. So these are some last pictures of her. That's her there next to Sharon. But I don't know what she died of. I didn't ask. I wanted to. She calls me Nosy Rosie.
Well, no, sometimes it's really hard to speak about it.
Yeah, but
the last thing you need is somebody putting it in your face again.
Right. But we helped him with the funeral expenses to bury his wife. It's just tragic. But we had it's like spaghetti, but for meat they used liver, and our nephew had never eaten liver before, and he didn't like it.
He very politely said, "I'll eat the spaghetti, but I can't do the liver."
But this was nice of him to invite us into his home, which is right next to his church there in Katali. And he's got like 6 kids, and the oldest one wants to be this guy here wants to be an accountant. So he was pumping me about what it takes to be an accountant. They all want to come to the United States. Everybody we talk to there wants to come to the United States. They think that there's more opportunity here than there ever is in Kenya. And they're probably right. But then the next day, we went to a small church outside of Katali. And as you can see, I'm the white devil. These kids are all staring at me. Who's that guy in the back seat?
Is this in the sugarcane field?
Yeah, these are on the sugarcane. That's what the kids eat for candy. Their teeth are just rotten because they eat sugarcane all the time. So they all have.
Oh, they're hungry. That sugar will pacify it.
Oh, I know. I understand, but it just ruins their teeth. They don't have good dental hygiene. So I went to this church, and at this church I spoke. The message there was about finances. They all wanted to know why in an economic downturn that the poor people suffer the most. And I told him, I said, I don't have the answer for that. It's always been that way. That the poor, uneducated people are the first ones to get dropped in an economic downturn. And they said, well, what can we do to help ourselves? I said, diversify. That's the one thing. You know, the secret to wealth is not tough. Living it is tough. But the secret is spend less than you make. You know, do that and you will be wealthy. It takes time, but that works. That absolutely works. But the problem is prioritizing your expenditures and or working hard enough to get the money to come in. You know, there's so many complications to that formula, but the formula itself is easy. But I said diversify. Don't get all your eggs in one basket, because if you put all your eggs in one basket and you trip, what happens to all your eggs? They all break. You know, they seem to get that. You know, diversify. Don't just have one thing going on for you. But I spoke, and once again, David interpreted what I was saying in Swahili. You can see here's the banner we have for Leave, Follow, Shine. It's not a cult. It's just a methodology to teach the gospel. Some people get confused. But then from Kitale, we took a small aircraft to Eldoret, Kenya, back to Nairobi. It was so nice. It was so nice to go back to Nairobi and back to our Hilton hotel.
Oh, you're not going to say anything about the airplane stairs.
Oh, Sharon had trouble. Sharon had to walk up the stairs, which
She climbed stairs into the aircraft
was hard for her.
because there was no jetway at the airport.
Right. But you can see this is a typical field in Kenya. Rich land, rich soil is red, very red clay, very nutritious. What do you call it? Humorous, you know, nutritious soil. They're hardworking people, but they don't have the infrastructure to pull themselves out. When the British pulled out, they took everything. There's railroad tracks everywhere. No trains. The British took them with them when they went back to England. Took the trains with them. So what are you going to do? You never saw a train. The other interesting thing that for me personally, I drink a glass of V8 every morning for breakfast. And there's these wonderful vegetable stands all the way along the road going up to Nakuru and to Kitale. And they have beautiful, they look like Romas. I don't know if they were, but they look like Roma tomatoes. And you could not find a glass of tomato juice anywhere. They think it's disgusting. I thought that was interesting. And carrots, man, they had carrots were about 2 inches, you know, at the base, much bigger than our carrots. Wonderful. I'd love to cook with those. But don't bring any agricultural products back. That's a bad thing. So we flew back to Nairobi. And the night before we left, we had dinner with Pastor Jeffrey. He's the one that was in the northwest slum of Nairobi. And wonderful dinner with him and all his kids. And then when we got to leaving, we left at like 1:30 in the morning after dinner. And they don't have jetways. So they put Sharon and I onto the food truck, you know, that comes beside the plane. And they brought us up to the plane, and we were able to get off and into the plane. But this is a picture of the food truck we're getting on. But there were some people were getting on, they were really, you know, frapped. So why do we go to Kenya? I think it's important to go over this. I don't believe you can earn your salvation through our own acts. I really don't believe that. That was not the purpose of going to Kenya, to secure my salvation. But because I believe salvation is by grace through our faith, because we're saved by Christ and his death for our sins. So why go to Kenya? Because God has us do good things. When we're Christian, when we have a Christian heart, we want to do good things. And I'm reminded of Matthew 25, when the man of son comes in his glory, the angels with him, sits in the glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him. Separate the people from one another as a shepherd separates sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. I find that to be one of the most terrifying passages of the New Testament. But then he says, the king will say to those on the right, come, you are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, You gave me something to drink. I was a stranger. You invited me in. I needed clothes. You clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. So we're really called as Christians to do good things, but it won't save us. We have to be saved in our hearts. So that was our trip. It was a changing experience for me because God has probably worked in my life. I've been a Christian, most of my life. Been times when I've been angry at God and separated from God, but I still believed he was there. I just didn't think he was worth worshiping, but I got over that. And I realized all of that, and seeing all this come together and have me be the answer to these people's prayers was humbling, extremely humbling, because these people are desperate. They've been praying, God, give us something, and then the fat white boy from Colorado comes and gives them a little bit, and I can't save Kenya. I can't save South Sudan, but I could save or help a couple of ministries, give some people a little hope. The prison message I gave was on Joseph in the Old Testament, how he had hope and kept the faith, and everything worked out for Joseph as it should. So keep the faith, keep going. There's a reason why you're here. That God has a plan for all of us. And unfortunately, it's God's plan for you to be here right now, but keep your hope, keep your faith, and move forward. Was the message I gave to the prison ministries. And I don't know whether they appreciated hearing that or how that went over, but you never know. But maybe in a few of them, I planted that seed that I just need to get through this, So I'll leave this slide up for a little bit, but if you have any questions, that's my email. If you want to subscribe to our South Sudan newsletter, you can do so at the website, or you can just Google Seeds of South Sudan, make donations, and we also have a presence on Facebook. So, questions?
Have you ever been out of the country before, Tom?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 4 years ago, we went to South Africa.
Okay.
The main difference there was it's about 30% white in South Africa. The Afrikaans, the German. It's about 5% white in Kenya. So we never had any problems. Nobody was ever mean to us or rude to us.
No, and I never felt that was the case.
But you'd walk into a room and everybody was looking at you because you're not the same color as they are. But they were nice.
Feeling.
And helpful, with everything. So yeah, we've been to Europe, what, 4 times?
5. Because you went once before you met me.
Yes, before Sharon. But we celebrated our 21st anniversary while we were in Kenya. So 21 years she's put up with me, your crazy husband.
Crazy me.
But yeah, we've been out before. We haven't been to Asia. I think I told you my father was born in Asia, so I'd probably like to go visit China sometime. He was born in Shanghai. My grandfather, after World War I, couldn't find a job, so he got a job in Shanghai, China. Met my grandmother on the boat on the way to China. So the rest of the story. But yeah, I've never been where they have the sink toilets before, and I have to say I didn't have to. For a guy, it's kind of easy, but I didn't have to do a big job when I was in the bathroom there. So, but
I thought it was very interesting that Kenya is 8,000 feet.
Yeah, 8,300. Nairobi is.
And right on the equator.
Right.
Bogota, where Robert was at for 10 years, is 8,500 feet and 3 degrees off the equator.
Yeah. It was so weird to go out and see
the morning. It's like 6 o'clock at night. It's dark. Just like that.
It was so weird to walk outside and the sun would be directly overhead. It's never directly overhead in here. I've been to the Arctic Circle, where it's dark all day long. I did the audit at Point Barrow, Alaska. And then, of course, in the winter, no sunlight at all. And then in the summer, the sun is up all the time. It just rotates around
right.
So our next big trip, hopefully, will be to Antarctica in January.
Sounds cold.
Yeah.
It's the middle of summer.
Yeah.
It's the middle of their summer and it's on a cruise.
We're going on a cruise, a nice Holland cruise ship. So, I mean, we're not going to suffer. Thank you for asking. And she's going to bring the binoculars and she's going to watch me out on the ice floes with the penguins, you know. Hi. So that's our next big trip. But we also have a lot of Leave, Follow, Shine in India. And they want me to travel to India. And one is way up north by the Punjab, and the other one is down south by Mumbai. So there may be a trip next year to India in my future to help them, because it really lifts these people up. I mean, it's amazing. I'm not that special, just me, and I show up and I give a few words out, God's words, not mine. And I like to think that I lifted some people's spirits a little bit. There's hope. Of course, they all want me to bring it back in my luggage, but that didn't happen. So any questions?
Did it change anything about the way you view life back here by seeing it over there, or?
Yeah, the prisons make our prisons look like Club Med.
Yeah. If our prisoners saw their conditions, I mean, it might lower the crime rate. I don't know.
That would be grand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Club Med. Our prisons are Club Med compared to there.
I remember one of the contractors that I worked with said he had a contract to do the prison bathroom. And one of the requirements was that there had to be warm water within so many seconds of turning the faucet on. They had to have all these things that, are, I would think would be a luxury. And he said, there ain't no way. I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna.
Well, none of the homes have
Right.
hot water heaters. They all have black tanks on their roof.
Yeah.
But we were there in the monsoon season, so we didn't get a lot of sunny, hot days.
So you got cold showers?
Well, the hotels we stayed in all had electric tankless heaters on them, the showers. Of course, the Hilton, they must have had a water heater because it was great, but the other hotels all had electric water heaters on the showers themselves. Sharon I had a meltdown on one of them. She couldn't get it to come on. And
I couldn't get it to come on, and turns out there was a switch down by the floor that you had to
it was
flip
an on-off
before you
switch
took
for the
your
electric.
shower.
Oh,
So I guess I appreciate our bathroom facilities a great deal. You take it for granted,
I do never take them for granted. I never take a bathroom for granted.
Oh, having
I could not do that. I cannot. I cannot even get myself to go to a more to just think of using a porta potty, and it'd probably be better than what they have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 10 times.
I just going camping is not my thing. I won't. If there's not running water, call me bougie, but I can't. And I feel for people that live in these places that do not have.
and clean water, potable water. I mean, we take
Yeah.
it for granted. You can drink the water from the faucet here without worrying about getting sick. You cannot do that there. You never get a drink.
You can't do that in Mexico. You can't do that in
anywhere.
Bogota.
Yeah.
Colombia. You can't do that.
And so what they do is they all have bottled water. And one of our group is an environmentalist, and she's really against plastic bottled water because the plastic all ends up in the landfill. Well, without that, you're going to get sick. You're going to die. What do you do? So, okay, Ted. I don't know. It's changed my perspective. This is the first real third world country we've visited. When we went to South Africa, we were in a college town, Stellenbosch, which is just north of Cape Town, and facilities, they had a lot of security, but facilities were normal for us, hot showers, but they were having a drought, so we had to.
Yeah, never volunteered to do the first shower.
She volunteered to be the first shower, so it never really got warm for her in her shower in the first day.
It got warm. It didn't even surpass cold.
Mine was wonderful. Thanks for asking. I was number 2.
By the time he got in there, it was hot.
I think it would have still been cold for him if it was me.
Yeah, you should have fixed that, right?
Oh, no,
I don't know.
I'm
I think-
very spoiled, and when it comes to that, I think us Americans are very spoiled and very unappreciative. Sometimes they just like you said, we take it for granted, that we just automatically have it. For these people, it would be such a luxury for them if they, when they come here to visit, that
They may not go, no wonder they don't go home.
they don't wanna go home.
Well, I don't
And you
know.
can't blame them. Who wants to go back to a toilet in the floor or not a toilet at all?
And then the worship, the way they worship. I think we tend to be too judgmental about our worship. Some groups don't believe in singing or music or, certainly not dancing and jumping around and screaming. Like they really like that, and I assume they're saying religious things in Swahili. I don't know.
You hope they are.
I think they are. It sounded like it. I don't know. But so I think we tend to be too judgmental. Is it a problem if you worship with an organ playing? I mean, is that a real Christian problem? If it helps you? No. That's, I guess, what it's opened up to me. That there are many ways that God wants us to worship. We all agree on that. But how we worship is kind of up to us. What makes us feel closer to God? Is an organ and a choir, does that make you feel closer to God? Does me. But they like to jump around and scream and beat on a drum. Does that make it wrong? I don't judge them for that. So I guess to answer your question, it's changed my perspective on worship. There's not too much I'm going to get upset about now in worship.
Yeah. Is there something you guys are planning on doing to continue your relationship with these ministries? Is there either future trips or future supplies being sent or?
Well, I got signed up with Western Union, and I'm sending money every month to the ministers I dealt with. And Leave Follow Shine sends money every month, but it's very nominal, just covers supplies. And that's the other thing you always wonder, are these ministers doing it because they don't have another job? It's a job, or are they truly motivated? And I didn't try to think too much about that, to judge that, because that's not my place.
That's all right. I wanted to see if the money we've been sending went to, there was actually a boy it was being applied to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I got a good answer.
Yeah, he's doing fine. So,
That is awesome. That you got to meet him. That's.
yeah.
Because
And
sometimes
I'd love to bring him back here, but we're told that never happens. So
if it's just a piece of paper that somebody's showing you, just a picture of somebody, you don't, but you guys actually got to meet him, that's awesome.
Yeah. There's really is a boy and
There really is a person there and he's getting it.
And I think I've told you, James, that when he was young, he witnessed the murder of his parents, and he and his buddies ran for the jungle, and the rebels took pot shots at him as they were trying to make the jungle. And then when they got to the jungle and were trying to get to the relocation camp, the animals smelled the blood, and so they were harassing him. And that kid has PTSD. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but that kid has PTSD. And I asked the director about it, and he says, "Oh, he's just quiet." No, that kid's, it left a mark, and that doesn't describe my childhood. I don't think anybody in our church's childhood is described that way. But
How
that,
did you get connected with him in particular? Did you sponsor him like through one of the larger organizations? Or?
through this Seeds of South Sudan.
Okay.
Yeah, they brought him down because he has an above average IQ, but he was malnourished, so he was really not doing well in the camp. They don't have enough food in the relocation camp in South Sudan, and it's anarchy in the camp itself. We had an opportunity to go there. I said, I just don't feel safe going there. So we didn't go into South Sudan, but many of the people did. Jill and Byron went.
well, they were looking at the birds too.
Yeah, they're bird watchers. They got a little old. But no, he just needed to be sponsored. And so we were asked, I said, well, okay.
Well, you never really know when you see the ads on TV about feed a child, save a
Yeah.
child. Is there really a child or is that just a
Yeah.
picture?
And as an auditor, I saw so many charities that were so top heavy. You just hate to give money to them because it's just going to fund the director's lifestyle. That is not the case here. I mean, this Seeds of South Sudan, it's zero overhead. It's all goes to the kids to feed them and medical. But it was a great experience, and any Christian should do something like this in their life, because it makes you appreciate why we're here and what we're supposed to do. Because, you know, I'm not a perfect person. I'm very imperfect, and yet I was able to bring hope and joy to these kids. And
I've always wanted to go do something like that, but like I said, I cannot get, like even the MR trips, I'm like, no, I think I'll stay back.
well, Sharon was way outside of her comfort zone. She's back with us today, and other than the twitching, you know.
Yeah.
Too bad it wasn't just a day trip. If it was
Oh.
a day trip, I could do it. But I don't know.
Well, when you have to fly 14 hours to get there, you
That's
don't
not
want
a day trip.
She doesn't, you know, we flew business class, which you can lay down flat, you know,
But I can't sleep.
but she couldn't, the pitching and yawing of the plane, she couldn't, I slept like a baby,
See,
thanks for
and
asking.
14 hours is way too long.
But on the first leg, I had my camera on the floor, so my feet wouldn't go all the way, you know, flat. And I didn't know what, then I figured it out, and oh, that was great. Slept the rest of the way. But we were tired. 9-hour time difference is huge. But going east is always harder than going west for some reason. No one's ever explained that to me, but it is, you know. It's coming back, we did much better with the recovery from the time lag.
I don't know, it still took me a full week.
Yeah, I had a couple days for me. Yeah, I'm probably gonna go to India. And when, I don't know. But
Do you have a ministry in particular that you're gonna go with?
yeah, no, just by myself.
Really?
I'm an international traveler. I
Okay.
can do it.
Yeah,
Well,
go by
there's
yourself.
some great
I don't know.
He's getting
ministries
the
in
look.
India, so
He's getting the look.
You see the look? My grandmother used to do that. That's bringing back tapes for me. I don't know. That trip is up in the air. They really want me to come out because they really need, you know, to get kind of boosted up. They're doing great there. Like I said, we have one way up north on the up near Tibet in the Punjab, and then one down south by Mumbai. So fly to New Delhi and then figure out how to get from A to B there once I get to New Delhi.
Doesn't who's ever running the ministry in India, wouldn't they help? I mean, that's how we verified the driver was okay, as the pastors recommended him.
No, we got that from Seeds. They've used
From
Kevin
Seeds?
forever at Seeds, yeah. Pastor Heidi. Yeah, this Sunday we're having a lunch at Montview Presbyterian, and I'll be speaking to the Montview Presbyterian people about our trip. So
awesome. Well, thank you for sharing and for going.
That's neat.
okay, well, I just shut off the sharing. We're going to produce this into a video.